We need to talk. But before we do, I just need 30 seconds of your time to talk to you about OneFootball. I get all sorts of offers from sponsors to shout stuff out on this channel, but I only actually accept it if I like and use what I am talking about, and I do like and I do use the OneFootball app. OneFootball is an app that covers hundreds of leagues, both domestically and internationally, in incomparable detail. For live scores, stats, news, updates on the transfer market, and much, much more, OneFootball is the only app you need to follow football. And you can even stream certain games and leagues on the app totally for free. My favorite feature is the aggregator of news about your club. So instead of trawling around the internet looking on YouTube or Reddit or Twitter or wherever, you get all the latest news in one feed on your phone. So simple, so useful. I think we're due an Emi Martinez Cryathon interview, so have a look at that on the OneFootball app. Download it for free from the link in the description. OneFootball, no one gets you closer. You may or may not have heard of the Overton window. It's a political term coined by an American policy analyst, Joseph Overton, in the 1990s, who I'm sure you're deeply familiar with, and it refers to the range of policies that a politician can stand for without appearing too extreme, based on an analysis of public opinion at that time. This is going somewhere, I promise. But if, for example, political discourse shifts due to a particularly radical or influential politician, certain policies that would have been perceived as pushing boundaries previously may then seem reasonable, even normal. And at that point, you would say, the Overton window has shifted. Mikel Arteta took charge of Arsenal at a time of huge turmoil. Managing his first top-flight game at 37 years and exactly 9 months old, he's gone on to have the highest win percentage of any Arsenal manager who's managed over 25 games in the history of the club. Arsenal look back on course to challenge for league titles. There's been a total reinvention of the club on and off the pitch, and he's done all of this in the modern era, with the youngest squad in the Premier League, at a time when the likes of Man City and Newcastle are backed by countries, and the Premier League is the de facto Super League. But we're not talking about it. It's like it's normal. Pundits and fans alike discuss Arteta like what he's doing is completely normal. They discuss his faults, they wish he was different in certain ways, they compare him to other managers, but it's important to remember, Arteta is not normal. This is not a normal process. He is so unnormal that he alone has shifted football's Overton window to accommodate him. Here's how. Firstly, there really is no precedent for such a young manager to be doing this quality of work in their first job at a club of our size. In fact, it's the first time in modern Premier League history. Arteta is the 32nd youngest manager ever to take charge of a Premier League game. That might sound like a pretty useless stat, but then you begin to look a little bit closer. Looking at managers under 40 who've played over 38 games in the league, to exclude the likes of Ryan Mason's stint as interim coach at Spurs, aged 29, then only looking at traditional top 6 clubs for a fair comparison, and not including Chelsea's weird player-manager obsession in the 90s, that leaves you with Andre Villas-Boas in 2011. Unlike Arteta, Villas-Boas had managed 2 clubs before and got sacked in his first season. So, quite literally, no one has done this before, at the age and experience level that Arteta is doing it, let alone to the level of success he's achieving while doing it. Even now, Arteta is still the second youngest permanent manager in the entire league. Only AFC Bournemouth's Gary O'Neill is younger by 1 year. To put it another way, Klopp has managed 1,002 senior professional games, Guardiola's managed 798, Ten Hag 477, Conte 584, Potter 435. Arteta has managed 163. As if that wasn't enough, Arteta is also, remarkably, managing the youngest team in the entire league, with the average age of the players he's used this season coming in at 24.2. Liverpool, City, United, Newcastle and Spurs are all in the top 10 oldest teams in terms of average age, and Chelsea were too before January. Age doesn't always equal quality, but developed quality, experience and leadership are huge components of winning football matches. Arteta's maturity in press conferences and his ability to deal with the press defies his years, and perhaps that sometimes works against him perception-wise, because despite his age, just over 3 years in, Arteta has managed to master almost every single facet of management to a frightening degree. There has been consistent improvement at Arsenal, as seen in the expected goals for and against data, almost to the point where it seems strangely linear, while other clubs have not been able to keep up such a consistent improvement over long stretches of time. Individual players have come on leaps and bounds. Saka, Martinelli, Nketiah, Ødegaard, Gabriel, Ramsdale, White, Saliba and more all show signs of statistical improvement, and just looking at them on the pitch, you don't need stats to tell you that they're getting better. That comes from coaching and providing the right environment and tactical system in which these players can flourish. Of course, many of those are young players and there will be a natural growth, but how many young players do we see not fulfilling their obvious potential? I also think he's improved the older players, the likes of Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka. One of Arteta's most underrated qualities is his ability to manage upwards. He's been able to create a dynamic and productive relationship with Edu Gaspar and Arsenal's board, which has seen a sustainable and precise approach in the market. He has been backed, but not in a blind way, in a smart way. He's clearly impressed the Cronkies based on what they've seen, and from what we know about the recruitment process, Mikel's eye is a huge part of it. To this day, the most expensive signing in Arteta's tenure has been Ben White at £50 million. Every other club in the traditional top six has spent more on an individual player under their current management, and while Arsenal are comparatively high in their net spend, it was always going to take investment to rebuild the club. The point is, the money has been invested wisely, and Arteta's record speaks for itself. Arsenal look ready to go big on Mikel and Mudryk, which tells me this isn't a case of capacity. It's a case of thinking clearly and not getting sucked into stupid deals at crazy prices. A young manager could be forgiven for doing that, but he hasn't. He also doesn't just go for the obvious talents, and if you want to see my analysis of Jakub Kiwior's first appearance in an Arsenal shirt for the under-21s, then you can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/diffknock, or click the join button on the channel to get that and lots more bonus content. Character-wise, to come through a period like this in 2020-21 without losing the dressing room is pretty remarkable, especially when you consider the types of characters that were in the dressing room at the time. Arsenal used to seem to break some kind of losing record every week, and now we're breaking records like this, and this. He's also evidently a special individual. You don't get Pep Guardiola calling you up at 30 years old, asking you to end your playing days early if you're not. On the field, Arteta has been extraordinary at working within his limits. Some coaches stick to their principles no matter what, and blame their players if the principles don't help them to win. But Arteta has slowly dialed up Arsenal's press, carefully changed our shape, moved our defensive line up season on season, and crucially added the right ingredients at the right time, showing a remarkable level of foresight considering the lack of experience that he's had. For example, we needed a left-footed centre-back straight away for our build-up phase, but this team was not ready for Zinchenko until now. He's never gone kamikaze to try and prove his mettle. He's shown a remarkable adaptability actually, something he may have been credited with had we seen his qualities elsewhere before they were on show at Arsenal. He did all that while dealing with the fallout of the pandemic in his first job, and won 2 domestic trophies along the way. So then we come to moments like this. Football fans comparing managers and miraculously finding that their club's manager is better. Even if this was true by the significant metrics, like points per game this season, league position, money spent compared to points gained, etc., shouldn't Ten Hag be better anyway? As someone who's managed 4 previous clubs and is 13 years older than Mikel, with a higher budget, more high-profile players, etc., etc., shouldn't he be a better manager? This comes back to what I was saying at the beginning. Previously, it would have been ridiculous to compare a brand new manager to Pep or Klopp or Ten Hag, but Mikel is competing far beyond where he and Arsenal should be, relatively speaking, when you look at wage bills, time in the job, experience levels, team age, etc., etc. So, our Overton window shifts. Regardless, it's apples to oranges. It's almost impossible to properly compare managers because there's so many variables, and we shouldn't try too much, in my opinion. But what's also happening now is Arteta is being used as a kind of proof of concept for giving managers time. Recently, we've seen Russell Martin, the Swansea boss, refer to Arteta as an inspiration and example, and then more notably recently, Graham Potter. But to me, using that example, which I think will be used a lot more in future, is just another example of how we're used to Mikel now. Some don't see Mikel as an outlier in the mainstream, they see this as normal, and what happens if you give a manager time. Saying, well, they gave Mikel time, so they should give me time, almost discounts just how special Arteta is. It erases who you're talking about, implying that other managers are doing similar jobs, and given time they get the same results as Mikel. They're not, and they wouldn't. I understand the concept is giving people time, and I agree with it as a basic idea, but it has to be caveated. It's like saying the only thing separating The Different Knock and Mr. Beast on YouTube is time. It's not. And to me, the moral outrage about Arteta's touchline antics is all part of this too. There has to be something to drag him down and stop us from accepting that he is an outlier, special in the mould of Pep or Klopp. But as Pep himself says, when you're at the top, they have to say something. Pundits claim that this is just an off-season and other clubs will be back next year, seemingly pointing to some magical 90-point season for City, Chelsea, United, Liverpool and Spurs all at the same time that never comes because it literally can't. They say this every single year. A few of the traditional big clubs will always have an off-season. Someone will miss out. It's maths. So it tells me there's a fundamental misunderstanding of Arteta and what's got Arsenal to this point so far. Like he's just got lucky and the data hasn't been showing this trend for years. Of course, I'm biased. Of course, Mikel has faults. He will lose football matches. And he has also made mistakes. But let's not, in the interest of balance and appearing to be critical thinkers, understate the ridiculous nature of this outlier. Arteta is that radical politician. And Arteta has shifted our Overton window. We have a once-in-a-generation manager at the helm. Let's not forget it. Thank you so much for watching The Different Knock. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please consider supporting us on Patreon monthly or head to buymeacoffee.com for one-time support. You can find me at AMOnFootball on Twitter, and we're at thedifferentknock on all social media. Also, check out our podcast. All the links are in the video description. Thanks.